Hello and welcome to Aniview Reviews. Today we're going to be talking about Toradora. So Toradora was made by JC Staff in 2008. It's 25 episodes long, and it's a drama romantic comedy series.
Takasa Ryuji is a second-year high school student cursed with his father's eyes, thus making him look like a delinquent. In reality, he is one of the kindest and gentlest souls you'll ever meet. On the first day of the new school year, Ryuji is happy to find out that his best friend Kikimura and a girl he has a crush on, Minori, are both in his class. During this moment of glee, however, he accidentally bumps into Aisaka Taiga, a small second-year student also in Ryuji's class. Taiga has gained the nickname Palm Top Tiger and reveals her vicious temperament by knocking Ryuji out cold. The following days bring an interesting development for this duo. The two discover that they just so happen to have crushes on each other's best friends and decide to assist one another in their endeavors. As the story moves on, however, the main cast discovers that true love isn't all that easy to acquire, and in most cases, maybe in the last place that you look.
Yeah, so Toradora starts off as a kind of typical, possibly even subpar romantic comedy. It has a nice quality to it. You can tell that there's a lot of work into it, but I just didn't get into it at first. This all really transformed, though, as the series goes on because it becomes a really strong tale with hardship, love, and tough life choices.
Yeah, the same thing for me. In the very beginning, it really doesn't seem anything all that unique or all that special, but as you watch it, it sort of grows on you, and you finally realize the sort of true potential and the true greatness that this series has to offer.
So Toradora's animation, it's pretty solid. It has crisp character designs, it's very much modern standards, everything's shiny, everything's vibrant colors, and it really works for the series. It gives it a nice vibrant flair, and you really feel like everything is kind of happy but has more to it under the surface.
Now coming to the soundtrack, while it's good, it keeps the sort of anime staples of quirky and fun music throughout the series. But the music used during the dramatic scenes are, I find, very noteworthy, as it really does help add to that emotional level of what you're seeing on the screen. The openings and endings, while interesting in their own way, I never really kind of struck a chord with them. They didn't really excite me, and for the most part, I found myself skipping them instead of watching them like I usually do.
Toradora's story begins a little bit rocky because it really feels like that typical misunderstanding. Oh, the main characters are gonna fall in love and everything like that, and it just felt just a little bit too juvenile to really start off the series well. However, once you get past about the 6th episode, you really start to see the series quality shine because they really bring in this their like sort of signature structure, which is these mini arcs that they're doing, where each mini arc in this series is about 4 to 5 episodes, and they always have a very strong climax at the end. So all the characters are sort of going to a goal, and it really helps this series never become stale because you're always looking forward to that mini arc's sort of revelation, what's going to happen and how it changes the story. So Toradora really changes itself from the very beginning where it's rocky to farther on as you get to see all these amazing little mini arcs with really powerful character interactions.
So, I mean, for me, for a romantic comedy, I found that there really wasn't too much filler, I'll say, in this series. Because by the end, when you look back on everything that's happened through all the mini arcs, through all just the littlest minor details that has happened with these characters, they all seem to have this sort of snowball effect, and the characters you get at the end of the series are the sort of production of the narrative that this anime has produced, and you get a sense of realism from these characters, and you really feel like this is a romance, this is a story that could be told in real life, not just in the sort of anime world. And I do agree the same thing. The first few episodes of the series are kind of lackluster. I mean, I started watching it when it first came out on its during its actual season, and I dropped it by episode 2 because I figured this is not, all that enticing. There's nothing really unique here. But if you stick with it, I mean, by episode 13, you just get hooked. Episode 13 is kind of the end of the first big mini arc, and it's such an overly dramatic moment that it's really touching, and you're sucked right in. You're there for the long haul. So it's a little while to get into it, but once you get into it, you're in it for the rest of the series.
Yeah, and I mean, you have this sort of intricate web of all their relationships between the series, and that's what I think is so important about the series. It has amazing chemistry between all the characters. It makes sense. There's no filler. Everything comes together really well. And because they have that mini arc structure where you're always getting new information sort of riding, it's like, okay, a new arc starting, this is building up, amazing climax, and then you start all over again. It really makes you always want to watch the next episode because you know something really exciting is coming up soon all the time. So all these aspects together, this interconnection, the relationship problems, everything builds on top of each other to make a really well done narrative.
Mm-hmm. And the dramatic moments probably are, in my opinion, the shining star of this series, though, because at the end of every mini arc, you have this sort of climactic moment that never feels like melodrama. It's genuine drama. And it just, like I said, it takes your heartstrings and just it dangles them in front of you and laughs at you while you're feeling sorry for these characters. And unless you're the most heartless person in the world, you will probably shed a tear at least at one point in this series because that's what it does to you. The realism, the characters, just everything is so good that you can't help but break down for the characters.
Yeah, and so while the beginning was stale and they have these amazing mini arcs with amazing climaxes, the ending is a bit of a balancing point because it's not exactly bad. It's an interesting ending. It's unique. It has a different flair that's never really been done in anime before. But it was a bit awkward. It's a little bit abrupt. You're surprised that it's happening. And it's a really different feeling from the rest of the series because it's almost confused as to what's happening.
Mm-hmm. I felt the same way. Let's jump over to characters now, and we'll start with Ryuji, who, in my opinion, is a very strong main character, but he does lack a little bit in the personality department. In the end, though, his strength is not from, his weaker personality. It's from the fact that he's such a unique, refreshing take on the main character of a romantic comedy. Because in most romantic comedies, you get the character who, has sex on the brain all the time, loves the woman with the big breasts, and so on and so forth. You see it all the time. And this guy, he's just your typical, genuine, nice guy living his day-to-day life, and they put him as the sort of main character of this series, and as I said, it's very refreshing, it's very unique. You don't really see this that often.
Yeah, it is weird that a very typical, normal male is a refreshing lead, but it is because he actually doesn't have, that whole sex thing on the mind constantly. He's a very genuine character. He tries to live a normal life. He tries to help the people around him, and he likes caring for other people. And I think it's part of the reason is because he's lived a life where he's always sort of ridiculed and people fear him because he looks kind of like a Yakuza member. And his family is a bit known for being in the Yakuza. So all that combined, he's really feared overall. And so he sort of tries to compensate for it by being a nicer and more genuine character overall. And he's very supporting of his family. And later on in the series, for the character Taiga, who becomes somewhat of the other main character, the main female lead.
Yeah, so Taiga is our main female lead, and for me, she's personally my favorite character of the entire series. She has such a strong personality to her, very strong, very aggressive, but it's sometimes misunderstood as well as you learn throughout the series goes on. She has such a touching backstory. You learn this whole relationship with her parents and how it's not, on the up and up, and just has great development. And once again, just like Ryuji, she is not your typical main lead. Your main typical female lead for this type of series is, the blonde bombshell with big boobs and, is gorgeous beyond belief. While she does have the long hair, she's, very short, very small for her age, and no one really expect her to be, the main lead of, this type of romantic comedy. But it works. It's very refreshing. It's very new, and I love that they took this sort of different route with the main characters.
Yeah, what I really liked about her was she was such a contrast to Ryuji. Ryuji was very calm most of the time, collected, and he has his stuff put together. Whereas her, on the other hand, she's aggressive, emotionally unstable, and just almost completely confused about what she's doing in her life and what she wants to do. And so this confusion, it feels like she is being supported by Ryuji, but at the same time, she's such a strong character on her own. She isn't being supported in the way of, giving her money and she's buying things. No, she's supported emotionally. She's such a wreck that she needs to sort of get her life together, and so she needs that support. She needs that grounding, and Ryuji has helped her along this entire time and helps her throughout the series. So what I found overall is that Taiga is probably one of the most complex and interesting female leads I've ever seen in an anime series.
Looking at the rest of the major players and all the side casts as a whole, you have Kitamura, Minori, and Ami, the other three sort of major players of this series, and they all just have fantastic development, fantastic, sort of character revelations, just like Ryuji and Taiga, and just overall as a whole, the cast of Toradora is just fantastic, seems so complete and wonderful.
Yeah, they all develop nicely, they all have depth, and their relationships between each other are really meaningful and interesting. And overall, this whole cast makes for a great series because of their interactions.
So what are you going to give Toradora?
Toradora easily gets 5 stars out of me. I just absolutely love this series from beginning to end, and the surprise factor of seeing that I dropped it and then coming back to it and realizing how amazing it is just brings this series to another level. I truly love this series, and I don't think I've ever seen a more emotional romantic comedy.
I'm also going to be giving Toradora 5 out of 5 stars. Just like Lyzl, I was shocked how this anime came back from being dropped to become one of my favorite series of all time. This anime has the total package. It has fantastic characters, swept up into a fantastic narrative, and this is probably the best romantic comedy I've ever seen.
Alright, so if you have any questions, comments, or requests, you can send them to aniview@hotmail.com or send us a comment on our YouTube page.
You can also get in touch with us through our forums via aniviewreviews.com.
So thanks for listening.
And we'll see you next time.